Their food is pretty unique. I was reading a book and they said, think of Indian food, Chinese food, Japanese food. They said it's exactly not like those. So unlike Japanese food, it's not small and expensive, it's big and cheap. Unlike Indian food, it has no spices. So if things that may be considered herbs or whatever, they'll use a lot of them. For example, dill or poppy seeds. Think, oh, okay, a little dill. No, they put a ton of dill. Or you think, oh, poppy seeds, I like poppy seeds, and they put like 4 cups of poppy seeds, or maybe an entire poppy seed cake, like kind of like we'd have pecan pie. It almost, I think you might even call it like a poppy seed pie. The diet seems to have much less sugar than in the U.S. In fact, I was kind of shocked when I came back, like, or maybe my body was shocked. It's like, I can't believe how much sugar you guys eat. But they probably eat more fat in general, which may not make sense until you're out there in the cold, and then you'll understand why they why they put dollops of sour cream on everything. So like a traditional Lithuanian meal for dinner might just be meat and potatoes. So that would be like sausage or even hare and potatoes. We didn't know what that meat was until after the meal. That was kind of funny. And then a lunch or something, or breakfast for them might include rye bread with butter or sour cream or sausage or a bell pepper or something, or whatever they want to put on. Food things that might be foreign or strange would be rye bread. It's a very dark, dense bread. Nothing like, I can't find it here in America. They also like making gira, which is a non-alcoholic bread version of that. It's kind of like a liquid rye bread. I think that was the only things I didn't really like. We also like kefiras or kefir, I don't know how to say it in English, which is a bacterian yeast introduced to milk. Kind of makes it thick. Not always the most appetizing thing, but it really kind of makes your insides feel nice and settled. And then their national dishes are pretty fun, which would include zeppelin, or zeppelins, which are potato-sized potato dishes. I don't know exactly how it's done. They'd always told us they like boil it or something and take out the starch and put it back in or something. And they make this dumpling dough and fill it with, and they put meat on the inside, and they'll just like wrap it up and boil it for about 20 minutes, and then take it out and put sour cream on it. And it's a really unique food because you probably won't try anything like that in America, mostly because the texture is so rubbery and you wouldn't expect that from a potato dish. But I don't know, I think it'd be pretty interesting to study scientifically, because my theory is that they kind of like cross-link and polymerize, and that way it stays in your gut longer than potatoes would, so you kind of can stay warmer all day long. Because I liked eating those before a nice cold day. And in the summer, they have cold borscht soup, which is that first thing, kefiras with beets, pickled beets, and together they're pretty good. And with lots of dill, you can't forget that. So kind of these things that I've talked about all together in one dish. And it's a cold soup, but it's pretty good. And it's really good, but it looks really strange. It's bright pink, kind of like Pepto-Bismol. Pretty unique, but pretty delicious. I remember, not all Lithuanians like this, so I think they understand why most foreigners don't. It's called, we called it meat jello. I think most people know that foreigners don't like it, so they don't really make you eat it, so don't worry. I was weird and I wanted to have it, so I bought myself one last week. I was there and ate a few bites of it, and I thought it was kind of strange. Kind of just tasted like chicken noodle soup, but it was crunchy. And you wouldn't really expect that from jello. I don't think anyone would really have much of an issue like thinking that something is gross, except for maybe that, but I don't think anyone would. Most people know that foreigners are a little squeamish about meat jello. It just snows and it gets cold there, but don't think that it doesn't get hot nor humid there. There was kind of a tornado. That was weird. I'm not from a place where there are tornadoes, but I remember seeing this kind of like green cloud, and we were running back to our apartment because there was just dust and everything flying in our face. That was really unexpected. I remember running and the wind shifted and we we were kind of stood back and stopped by the wind. That was really strange. And I don't know if that's typical, but that only happened once. It rains a lot there. The word Lithuania in Lithuanian actually is kind of related to the word rain. You can maybe even translate it as land of the rain if you have a really flexible translation. So it does rain a lot there. I didn't really see the streets really fill up with water as maybe some other people had. Rains a lot there, but of course it's cold. And I didn't think it was possible to have fog and snow at the same time. I guess where I'm from is pretty humid, but arid. But I guess when you get that humid and that cold, I guess you can still have fog. I think one of my favorite things about their history is their recent history. I remember clips of when the television tower, there was a conflict at the television tower in Vilnius, and I was just amazed. I barely saw a clip or so, and I just felt really impressed how important that event was. Lithuania and the Baltics had been experiencing glasnost and perestroika, kind of a time of more openness. They were starting to become more independent, and they started doing different things to become more independent in various degrees. And I don't know exactly which event happened first, but Lithuanians started broadcasting their independence over the television. So in the middle of the night in winter, the Russians sent in their tanks right up the streets and started surrounding this television tower. There were a few people who died. I don't know exactly how it happened, but all the streets in that area are named after them. But other than that, it was fairly bloodless for what they were expecting. Associated with that clip, but maybe not at the same time, but really close at that time, people were crowding around the Seimas building, or the Parliament building, not too far away. And they were even starting to build up like a wall, a blockade. I don't know what was being said in Russian, but they're saying, "Go home. We don't want to see any innocent blood spilt tonight. Go home." And people didn't go home. They were standing there in front of the Parliament building and around this tower. But kind of the miracle was how the Russians did leave, and their independence wasn't just the rest of the world found out about their independence. It wasn't just covered over in a night, and I guess the rest is history. Lithuania, even though it's a small country now and maybe you've never heard of it, it was at one time one of the largest countries in Europe, if you don't include countries that were partially outside of Europe, for example, Turkey, and maybe what would have been like the Muscovy duchy or something like that. So Lithuania was actually the largest country in Europe at the time, and it spread from the Baltic Sea down to the Black Sea. Of course, not all those people spoke Lithuanian. There were some Ruthenians, Polish people, Lithuanian speakers, Russian speakers, and Belarusian speakers, Ukrainian speakers, and that was all in the Lithuanian Grand Duchy. I think it was considered a Grand Duchy because at certain points in their history, I'm not sure about this, because they hadn't accepted Christianity at that point, or the Pope hadn't granted someone the right to be a king. So they were a Grand Duchy, not a kingdom. And then throughout history, they had varying degrees of almost unification or a relationship with Poland for protection or for other reasons. It's sometimes referred to as a personal union because there were so many kings and dukes, and they would all just kind of marry each other, and there were so many different lands or whatever. But anyway, the Polish and the Lithuanian kingdom and Grand Duchy at one time had the same ruler who was both the king and the Grand Duke of both countries, which grew later to be an actual union of countries, also known in English as the Commonwealth, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So they have this kind of shared interesting history with Poland, but not so much after the Soviet period, because Poland was a separate state from the Soviet Union, but kind of a satellite state, while Lithuania was incorporated into the Soviet Union. But of course, between the wars, Lithuania was an independent nation. So they actually had this very, very long relationship with Poland, which is kind of interesting, but mostly just left. The only thing that you can maybe notice now is the architecture and the Catholicism. That's the only thing I've really noticed. It's really amazing to see how old their culture is, how long they really have been there, and even their language starts to reflect things that, like weather phenomena or things like walking through a field. That it makes sense because I guess if you live here that long, maybe you'd come up with a word for that too. Their history is really interesting. I think Lithuanian is a very unique language, and anyone who has the opportunity to learn it is in for a treat. It's pretty hard, but it's pretty unique. Lithuanian is considered by linguists to be the most archaic Indo-European language, almost more like a Proto-Latin, and not that Latin would actually help you very much to learn Lithuanian. You might be able to piece a few things together. Like I figured out the word for view is kind of like the word in Latin, like vaizda is like vista or vista, or whatever it is in Latin. So it's a very, very, very old language, and you can actually kind of feel that when you speak it. Of course, they do have some slang, but in general, it feels like a very, very old language, and it sounds like it too, especially with some kind of dialects. I think most people think it kind of sounds like Russian and maybe even like a Indian language, because Lithuanian really is kind of that has that many features that are old, that it even relates to some Indian languages. For example, like Sanskrit, which is dead now, but is kind of like the liturgical. I don't even know how to pronounce that word in English or in any language. Language for India. That language has words that are very, very similar in Lithuanian. For example, avis, which means sheep, is also a word in Sanskrit. Dumas in Sanskrit is the word for smoke in Lithuanian, even though in Lithuanian they would say it in the plural more often, like dume. So yeah, there's features that are really interesting about it from a scholarly perspective. Lithuanian has very, 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 very few idioms, which is kind of strange, but might be a relief to anyone learning the language, that for the most part, when a Lithuanian is speaking, they're going to speak in a very literal sense. I can think of more idioms in Spanish, and I don't even remember Spanish, than I can in Lithuanian. You can learn a few idioms, they're fun. For example, like in English we say, go see a man about a horse, that means to go to the bathroom. In Lithuanian they say, I'm going to the gnomes. That's a fun one. They'll also say, I don't turn my head, and that kind of means don't make me think too much, don't give me questions. Although Lithuania historically was a very agricultural nation, their cities are very urbanized, probably because of communism, because most people live in very tall apartment buildings. These cities, which are probably smaller than your hometown, have probably more elevators than your hometown by far. There are agencies that run and repair elevators all over, maybe not all over the place, but that was strange because although these cities may be smaller, they actually have elevators. The transportation is definitely different. In the two largest cities, they have trolley buses, and in all the cities, they have buses. And even in the small cities, the very, very small cities that you may pass through on a train or a bus, their transportation is phenomenal. And they don't even realize it. It's kind of funny. When talking to Lithuanians, oftentimes they think you're from a big, 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 big city. I think everyone's from LA or New York or something. One of the things that I would tell them that would always shock them was that your transportation is amazing. And no, really. I can travel from here to here on a bus or a train for this price. And it gets even better for older people. If you're really, really old, you can travel across the country for a few cents. Probably because it is a smaller country, each city seems to have a more specialized industries. So in different cities, people had different occupations. For example, in Klaipėda, the port city, people had more sea-related occupations, and that was kind of interesting and sometimes unexpected. So we'd be like, oh, where's this person? Oh, he's off at sea. Oh, I didn't get to say bye or something. Cholet had more industry, but I didn't meet too many people that were related to that. I think more of their industry happened during communist times, which is kind of interesting because more so than other cities in Chile, there were more people who were sad by the current economic situation. Most people wouldn't be so happy about communism leaving. Chile had more candy factories, more television factories. And if you're going to make something, wouldn't you rather be making candy and television than like shoes? So they were, at least that city seemed to have been more prosperous at that time. And that was kind of a shock to me that some people actually enjoyed communism or thought that it was a good point in their life for the community or for themselves. As far as the other two cities, Kaunas and Vilnius, they felt very big to me because they're bigger than my home cities. Everywhere there are these really tall apartment buildings. Kaunas and Vilnius are interesting because they're very culturally different. I lived in Kaunas first, and there are very few Russian people who live there. Once or twice did I run into someone, actually, yeah, twice did I ever run into someone who couldn't really speak Lithuanian but who could speak Russian. So that was kind of strange. I was expecting there to be more people like that. But in the other city, in Vilnius, that happens all the time. You run into people who can't speak Lithuanian but speak Russian. Or, in fact, the first person that I ran into in Vilnius who didn't speak Lithuanian very well spoke Polish instead. So there are actually a large amount of Polish people who live in Vilnius, and strangely kind of an arm around the city out in the countryside. So those cities are close together, but very culturally different. So Lithuanians, they grandparents, parents, or great grandparents lived on a farm. So you can still see that even though many of them live in an apartment building. They really like fresh food. And I think that's because, I think personally that's because, okay, they say it in Lithuanian like I'm 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 generations from the plow or something. So, sometimes it's even funny. Someone got mad at us for going to the grocery store once a week instead of once a day or once every other day. And I thought that was kind of funny because at home I went to the grocery store even less than that. Lithuanians go to the store very often compared to Americans. It's pretty far north, so that means that it's light pretty long in the summertime and dark for quite a while in the wintertime. I guess it was a little strange sometimes in the summertime because we'd be going to bed and there might still be a child out playing on the park, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and that was kind of strange. O, labas, sveiki visi. Tai aš nežinau, kas jūs toks, bet aš buvęs vyresnysis Vegstefas. Ir tik norėjau išreikšti savo dėkingumą ir meilę tiems, kurie gyvena Lietuvoje, o tiems, kurie kalba lietuviškai, gal negyvena tenai, bet turėjau labai didelę progą tarnauti ir gyventi Lietuvoje, ir tai buvo man labai gerai, ir norėjau išreikšti, kad savo meilę ir dėkingumą. Labai dažnai galvoju apie Lietuvą ir apie lietuvius, galvoju apie kaip aš norėčiau kalbėti su jais, o apie jų nuoširdumą, ir aš taip pat noriu išreikšti, kad Jėzus Kristus ir dangiškasis tėvas jūs myli taip pat. Nors mes ne visada galim pajusti tos meilės. Jie tikrai mus myli ir mes tikrai galim priartėti prie jų, bet kur mes begyventumėm, o mes tikrai galim stiprinti tą ryšį su Dievu ir priartėti prie jo. Ir tai tikrai verta. Aš manau, kad kartais mes manome, gerai, o jis gali būti, arba dvasiniai dalykai gali būti jam svarbus, o man ne, bet tikrai mes esam Dievo vaikai ir Jis mus myli ir nori, kad mes būtumėm laimingi. Ir dėl to Jis ir palaimins mus, jeigu mes norėsim paklusti Jo įsakymams ir daryti tai, ko Jis nori ir tikisi iš mūsų. Taigi, tokie yra tokios yra mano žinios šiandien. Tik noriu išreikšti savo meilę ir kad dangiškasis tėvas jūs myli taip pat. Ir tai sakiau Jėzaus Kristus vardu. Amen.